Thank you for joining us for the presentation of the proposed budget for the 24-25 school year. One of the things we like to do here at North Syracuse is celebrate our students' success. And we could have an entire slideshow filled with pictures of students doing what students do here at North Syracuse, succeed and excel. Here's a picture of our CNS marching band that won the New York State Marching Band Championship. We're very proud of these kids. So today's agenda, I want to talk to you a little bit about things that were impacting our decision-making process for the 24-25 budget. We'll share our proposed revenues, the tax cap calculation, proposed expenses, vehicle bonding proposition, that's where we buy our buses. We'll talk about the district savings, our fund balance and reserves. We need to use some of our capital reserve and our debt service fund this year, and we'll explain that as well. We'll talk about the Salina Free Library and the budget process timeline, vote and election information, and the budget presentation schedule. So some considerations that were impacting the budget for next year. Although overall enrollment continues to decline, the number of students with special needs has increased consistently over the last few years. Our students still have academic gaps resulting from the pandemic, and social emotional issues continue to impact student behavior. We're not going to have federal stimulus aid for next year. CRSA ended in September of 23, and we lost $3.3 million of funding, and ARP will end in September of 24. It won't be available for the 24-25 school year, and that's $2.7 million. Numerous labor contracts will be negotiated this year, and as a result, the budget that we're proposing for 24-25 reflects estimated salaries and wages. We're operating in an inflationary environment, and due to the tax cap, increased costs of school operations have not been added to the tax levy. We're limited to 2% that we can add to the tax levy, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. The labor market is extremely tight. There's just not enough qualified people to fill open positions in public education. In response to the loss of COVID aid and declining enrollment, we're eliminating 12.5 open positions resulting from staff retirements. 6 of our staff members will be relocated as a result of these position eliminations, but no staff will be laid off as a result of position eliminations. We value our recent hires. We've invested heavily in them, and we've worked hard to maintain their employment with the district. As you may be aware, in 2022, the district adopted a 5-year strategic plan. Our mission is to educate all students to the highest levels of academic achievement and prepare them to be productive, responsible, ethical, creative, and compassionate members of society. The plan identified 3 primary goals that focused on graduation rate, reading proficiency, and emotional competency. The strategic plan has guided our budget process, and we've made meaningful progress in many areas. We implemented new ELA curricula from CKLA and EL education that covers our K through 8 ELA. Community schools partnerships with Onondaga County have allowed us to keep promise zone and contact specialists in our buildings that really support our students' social and emotional needs. We've got the student support systems in place that allow us to monitor and support student mental health. We've worked really hard in the area of professional development to target our professional development in a way that empowers our staff and builds the capacity of our system to improve both the academic and emotional supports for our students. And despite the budget challenges, we believe that we've made progress on the strategic plan and that progress is sustainable. Another celebratory slide here. These are some students from Gillette Road Middle School and Roxborough Road Middle School that competed and won in the Micron Robotics Challenge. Let's talk about our revenues. Our biggest component of revenue is our property taxes, and the next biggest is our general state aid. And so general state aid was scheduled to increase, our foundation aid was scheduled to increase to $66 million for the 24-25 school year. The final New York State budget only provided $65.3 million, leaving us about $700,000 short. Since the state budget wasn't finalized when our board needed to adopt the budget, Our budget proposal assumed that foundation aid would be fully funded, and therefore this difference is going to have to come out of fund balance by the end of the year. So again, we just didn't get the state aid we expected, but we'll reconcile that as we approach year end and probably take it out of fund balance. Building aid, we've got a lot of capital projects underway, as you may note in looking at our district dispatch. We've got descriptions of the projects that voters have already approved, but we don't get building aid on those projects until after the projects are completed. Real property taxes, I started out, that's the biggest component of our revenues. And the increase in the tax levy is going to be limited to the tax cap. The allowable levy growth factor, that's for inflation, was 2%, even though our inflation for the last 12 months was 3.1%. As a result of inflation, the cost of operating our school district has increased, just like it has for most people at home. Things are more expensive. Inflation was 3.4% in 2023, 8% in 2022, and 4.7% in 2021. And in each of those years, we've only passed 2% of the inflation onto the taxpayers. And as I mentioned already, American Rescue Plan funding will not be available for the 24-25 school year. Micron, everybody wants to hear about Micron. We're just really excited that this recently, the President of the United States was here announcing that Micron received a $6.1 billion grant to build two of their chip fabs here in Clay. And as a result, we anticipate that the pilot agreement between Micron and the county, which impacts school districts and towns, will be put in place very soon. And that pilot agreement will result in payments made to the school district that we will pass on to the taxpayers. They'll reduce the tax levy. So stay tuned for that. But there's no impact in the 24-25 school year from Micron because the pilot agreement is not in place at this time. Speaking of Micron, Micron held a 3-day chip camp here at North Syracuse, and our students had an opportunity for one of the days to travel down to Cornell. And you see our students here at Cornell, students and teachers who participated in chip camp with Micron. Another great opportunity for our kids. The revenues for next year are estimated at $212,196,591, or about $8.9 million more, or about a 4.39% increase. Our largest component of revenues is our tax levy at $104 million. Second largest is the general state aid at $89.8 million. What you'll notice in this slide is that we're going to use more fund balance, about $1 million more of our savings in fund balance, and about $1 million of ERS. That's our employee retirement system reserve. Retirement costs went up this year, and we're using some reserves to cover those costs. And that's an important point this year. We're relying more heavily on reserves and fund balance than we have in the past. As I've mentioned, two largest components of our revenue are the tax levy and general state aid, as you can see from these two slices of the pie. Onto the tax cap, that this is the state mandated tax cap calculation. It tells districts how much they should raise their taxes. As you can see, right in the center of the calculation is the allowable levy growth factor, 2%. And so we've used that as a primary driver of our increase. There are some other adjustments around pilots and tax levy for capital. That's all the local share of capital projects we've done. But at the end of the day, our tax levy is going to increase by $3 million, or about 2.98%. And the estimated tax increase for a home valued at $100,000 before STAR is $55.03. So regardless of whether you live in Cicero, Clay, or Salina, whether your town is a full value town like Cicero and Salina, or a partial value town like Clay, you're going to pay the same amount, roughly the same amount in annual school taxes for a house valued at $100,000. Again, you'll experience an increase of about $55 or $4.59 per month. Moving on to expenditures. This is a listing of some of our bigger expenditures: health benefits, retirement costs, salaries and wages. We're a people-based business. It makes sense that those would be some of our bigger costs. Fuel costs and energy costs are also significant. The district's done an amazing job managing our health benefits. We partner with our teachers union. We have a health oversight committee. We look at every opportunity we can to maintain the quality of benefits, but also drive down the cost of those benefits. The vast majority of our prescriptions are generic drugs that are very cost effective. Having said all that, though, we expect cost increase at 5.67% for next year, and we've incorporated that into our budget. There was a nominal increase in the TRS, Teachers Retirement System, costs, and a more significant increase in the Employee Retirement System cost. The TRS covers teachers, and the ERS covers non-instructional staff. Salaries and wages, as I mentioned earlier, are estimates in the budget because we've got contracts under negotiation. Fuel costs been very volatile, as you've probably noticed from the filling your cars up, that the cost of gasoline has gone up recently. We've adjusted our budget to reflect the most recent pricing and our best estimates for next year. Energy costs, the district does something that has helped us out. We enter into a 3-year supply agreement through a New York State Municipal Energy Cooperative. And what that does is that allows us to lock in the cost of electric and gas, the unit cost. And so we've found that has been beneficial to the district. We just entered into a new supply agreement, which expires, which just expired in May of 24, and that'll carry us for the next 3 years. Obviously, we have a warm winter. That's going to reduce our energy costs. A colder winter, we're going to have higher energy costs. But we've adjusted our business plan to reflect the latest supply agreement. Here are our expenditures. You can see, again, it's a balanced budget, so our expenditures equal our revenues at $212 million, 4.39% increase. If you look at the salaries and wages, our employees are not getting a 5.54% increase. What this represents is the district has attempted to absorb some of the positions previously paid for by federal grant money into our budget. These are social workers and AIS teachers and other positions that have been critical to closing academic gaps and addressing the social and emotional needs of our students. The benefits cost, you can see there that it's going up 1.9%. Health benefits are going up 5.6, over 5.6%. But benefits include things like FICA and workman's comp and disability and dental and whatnot. Lots of other costs, retirement benefits, pension costs, and so the blended rate came down to 1.9%. You can see that we continue to spend heavily with BOCES. We believe that this provides the greatest opportunity for our students. Services that we buy from BOCES are aidable, so we get some additional aid on that. And we find that it's more efficient when we collaborate with the neighboring districts to provide services to our students. Again, a balanced budget, $212 million in expenditures, or a 4.39% increase. And as I mentioned earlier, we're a people-based business, so it makes sense that the largest slices of the pie are salaries and wages and benefits. The most important thing we do is put a teacher in front of students. Let's talk about our buses. The burning question that in a lot of people's minds is will we be buying electric buses next year? And right now, we do not plan on buying electric buses. And the reason for that is that we applied for 2 grants. We received one of the grants, but still the cost of an electric bus is quite a bit higher than a gasoline bus, even after the grants. And so we want to be a good steward of the community's money, and we want to move slowly with this conversion to zero emission buses. And so we're doing all the things we're supposed to be doing. We're doing the studies of our facilities, of our fleet, and we're applying for grants, and we'll keep watching this. But at this time, we're just not ready to buy an electric bus. So we're going to stick with our tried and true bus replacement program. We're going to try to make sure we don't have too many buses over 10 years old on the road. And so in order to do that, we need to buy two 42 passenger buses. These buses are used to service our special needs students. We're going to buy 10 65 passenger buses. That's the traditional large school bus, and a handful of M&O vehicles. Total tax impact of the $2.1 million purchase is about $2.84 on a $100,000 home before STAR. Now to our savings fund balance. You know, we do everything we can to make sure that we do not overtax our taxpayers and that we follow the New York State Comptroller's guidelines for savings. Therefore, the Comptroller recommends that we have 4% of our budget in our fund balance, and we're at 4.02%. That's our estimate for next year. Keep in mind that we plan on using 6.6 million of our fund balance next year. We do not have lots of money squirreled away inappropriately. We're trying to again follow those controllers' guidelines and have the appropriate amount of fund balance saved at the end of each year. We have reserves for specific liabilities, tax certiorari. That's when people contest their tax assessments and ultimately their school taxes. Workman's compensation. We have reserves for capital projects and employee retirement system and TRS. And we're asking the voters if they'll allow us to use $1 million of the ERS reserve in connection with this budget. As well, we're asking them if we can use 1.4 million of the debt service fund and 3 million from the capital reserve in order to support the capital projects that they've previously approved. And so you'll see a separate ballot, a separate referendum, or I should say proposition on the ballot that refers to the December 8th, 2021 capital project that was approved by the voters, where we're doing work at Lakeshore Road Elementary, Cicero Elementary, Smith Road Elementary, and CNS High School. And due to the costs of related to inflation, the cost of these projects exceeds the voter approved budget. And in order to address these increased costs, we're asking the community to improve the use of $3 million for the capital reserve and $1.4 million from our debt service fund. The good news is there'll be no tax impact of these additional costs if we can use these reserves. We're really blessed to have the Salina Library on our Mattie Dale, Roxborough Road campus. And what a great organization. By law, they're allowed to include their library proposition on our ballot. And as you can see here, they're looking for a modest increase of 2% in their operating budget. And then the process continues here. We'll have another budget presentation, which we call our budget hearing, next Tuesday, face-to-face at the district office. So if you'd like to come see that, you can come and ask questions. There'll be an open mic at that meeting. And then the vote and election is on May 21st at our district office here for those people that live south of 481, and at the Michael J. Bragman Stadium, not Cicero Elementary, at Michael J. Bragman Stadium for those folks that live north of Route 481. Voting will be from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on the 21st. And anybody who is interested in voting or then has not registered, they can contact Jill Herrera, our district clerk, and she can get them registered. We'll have two open registration nights, or two opportunities for people to register, one on the 7th at the Michael J. Bragman Stadium and the other at the 7th at the district office from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So I would encourage you to come out and make sure you're registered and then participate in the vote and election on the 21st. We will be doing some additional community presentations. We'll have a community in person at the junior high on the 9th of May. We will have two virtual presentations, one on the 7th at 7 p.m. and one on the 14th at 7 p.m. You can go on our website and get the link to those virtual presentations if you want to hear more about the budget. And thank you so much for listening to the presentation. And don't hesitate to call me, Don Keegan, Associate Superintendent for Business Services here at the district office at 218-2119.